Hello, and get ready, because in today's video we're going to talk about something very personal to me and my life. But as always, I want to turn my story that I'm going to share into something that can be helpful for you and to help you improve your communication and your relationships and your overall confidence. My name is Trisha Veldman. I'm the founder of Powerful and Poised. I am a confidence and speech coach as well as a spoken word poet. You can find out more about me at powerfulandpoised.com. If you have followed this channel for a while, or have seen some of my other videos, or have watched my TEDx talk, or know anything about me, then you know that a major defining piece of my life is that I have been taking care of my mother, who has been on hospice for 2.5 years. About 4 years ago, she was told she had 2 months to live. And so I have learned so much from having a front row seat, watching her experience navigating impending death. I've learned so much about life and death and spirituality and mindset. I really watched my mom be the embodiment of mind over matter, and I use so much of what I've learned from that experience to infiltrate my coaching and to recognize that it is okay to put things into perspective, and it's actually really important to put things into perspective. And sometimes the big serious things can make the little things that we get stressed out about not feel so significant. But today, what I want to share is how to help someone going through grief or going through a really rough time, and also how you can communicate and express yourself to get what you need if you are going through a rough time. So first and foremost, I'm going to share a personal story because it makes all of this relevant. So first of all, I'm going to say a lot has happened for me in the past month. The past 2 videos that I've released, I pre-recorded and had those scheduled to release. So those were not done in real time, and I'm sharing that so that when you hear what I'm about to explain, you won't think, how did Trisha record videos while all that was going on? I had actually pre-recorded those videos because I was supposed to be traveling right now. I was supposed to take a 2-week trip to Italy. I ultimately canceled that because my mom took a turn for the worse. Fortunately, I'd had the videos already prepared, and so that's why those were already shot and scheduled to release. It's also why, if you follow this channel closely, you may have noticed I haven't released any shorts because I wasn't that prepared. But what happened was, a few weeks ago, at the beginning of May, my mom took a turn for the worse, and unfortunately, she did pass. So I have been experiencing a lot of grief. That happened about 2 weeks ago. I've been experiencing a lot of grief, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, as anyone, I think, in my position would. And I've been around my family who's also experiencing that. So I want to use this opportunity while I'm in it and in the throes of it to share what has been so helpful for me by other people, and maybe some things that I wouldn't recommend doing if you know someone who is going through a similar hardship, if they're losing someone, or even going through a breakup or a loss of a job or anything. It doesn't have to be the death of a parent or the death of a loved one, but anytime someone is grieving, there are things that we can do to help and things that maybe wouldn't be as helpful. And if you are experiencing any sort of grief or loss or hardship, then I hope that some of these thoughts will resonate with you and will give you some strategies and tools to use to communicate what you need and express what you need. So first of all, I want to say thank you for listening to this. It's a very vulnerable story, obviously, and I wouldn't always be so public with sharing that information, but I know that it could potentially help people, and I know some of you watching really actually care genuinely, and you want to know how my mom is doing, and so now you know she is free from her physical pain. And just because I'm not sobbing right now doesn't mean I'm over it or okay. I think I go into this performance mode. I actually gave a eulogy at her funeral, and I only teared up at one point, and I think the only way I could do that was because I was in front of a bunch of people, because every time I practiced, I was sobbing. So if you ever need to prepare a eulogy, call me, because I feel like an expert now in being able to help people through that. Anyway, if you are grieving, or if you know someone who is grieving or going through a tough time, some things that could be really helpful. One, just let them know you're thinking about them. I have been so overwhelmed in a good way with the amount of support and sweet messages that I've gotten from people who literally just say, thinking of you, checking on you, and that's it. They don't expect a response. I can just like the message or heart the message or say thank you, and then that's it. They don't have to do anything. Or some people have been incredibly generous, and one of my friends, for example, she said, I'm going to bring you a care package later today. I'm going to leave it at your door. I'll text you when it's there, but there's nothing perishable. She dropped it off. She drove away. And I said, oh, I'm actually home. And she said, do you want to visit? And I was like, actually, no, like I'm not up for a visit. So she said, enjoy. I'll check on you next week. And it was the best, because when someone is grieving, yes, it's nice to be around people. And it's such a shock to the system. I really just wanted to be around my family, or I wanted to be alone. But I really appreciated and valued the support that I was getting from my friends too, and strangers and neighbors too. So first of all, just know that someone is grieving, especially with the loss of a loved one. They're probably in shock and they don't know what they want or need. So don't ask, how can I help? What can I do? What do you want? Just do the thing. Like my friend who brought the care package, it was so nice because I didn't have to do anything. I had another friend who said, I want to get you guys food. I'm going to order from Olive Garden. It'll be there at 4 p.m. Just tell me what you want in the morning. And it was great because it was so easy. There were some other people there was one other person who offered to bring food, but it was late. It was like 6 p.m. They were like, what do you feel about sushi? And we were like, that's nice, but we already ate, so can you come tomorrow? And it was still very generous and kind. But it's harder when someone says, what do you want? What kind of food do you want? And know that your intention is good. If you're asking someone, what do you want? Makes sense. You obviously want to give the person what they need. But here's the thing. When you're grieving, or when a person is grieving or in extreme shock and everything is very fresh, it is very hard to know what you want. Also, I was so surprised. I had no appetite, and I'm surprised because I'm typically an eat your feelings type of person, but this is the first time in my life that I was just like, I don't want food. I would force myself to eat dinner, but I wasn't really eating a lot. And so when people say, what kind of food do you want? It's like, I don't care. I don't want anything. And I had a really good friend who was consistently checking in, like, hey, if I make soup, do you want that? Hey, if I brought you this, would you want that? And every time I was like, I don't know. And he ultimately ended up not doing anything except for checking in on me, which is still doing something, but not bringing anything, because I was like, at some point I was like, the only thing I want is my mom. So like, your intention is nice, but this is too much energy for me to have to decide. The best thing if you want to support someone who's going through something is just do something. Don't ask. And I used to think things like flowers, for example, felt a little empty, but I don't think that at all anymore, because so many people that I did not expect, like friends I have not talked to in years, saw on social media or learned from a friend that my mom had passed, and they sent me flowers, and they sent them to the funeral home, because on the obituary you have the option to do that. And there was a distinct moment where I was at the funeral. It was in the first pew at the church, and I looked up and I saw this bouquet of flowers, and I saw on the card my friend's name, and I was like, I had no idea she sent me flowers. And it was the most touching thing, because I felt like she was there and I felt that love and support. And I'm not saying you have to go spend money on this big fancy bouquet, but just a little thing like that really means something. Something else was, on the obituary there was a tribute wall, and people could write memories or write what they thought about the loved one. And when I would read those, I was like, oh my gosh, that was probably the most touching thing anyone can do. And I had a friend of mine who said, I know there's nothing I can do from far away, and she hadn't thought about like sending a card or sending flowers or anything. So I was like, go write on the tribute wall. And she wrote about like the one time she met my mom and how wonderful it was. And that was so touching. So if you really want to support people, especially someone who's dealing with the loss of a loved one, do things that will help them know that you're thinking about them and that you care about them, but without requiring their energy. So for example, like I mentioned, check-in texts have been amazing. People have been sending me texts like, thinking of you, hope you're doing okay. And then there's no pressure on me to respond. There have been other people who have texted things like, how are you feeling? Which is fair and nice, but it's hard to respond to that. I had one text that said, what's been the hardest part of this so far? How do you answer that? I'm not at a place where I am ready to intellectualize or put into words how I'm feeling. And so I understand his intention with sending that message. He was a very emotionally intelligent person. The intention was so good. He's trying to show me, hey, I'm there for you. Hey, I want to listen. But I'm like, I don't have the energy for that. And so remember, when someone is grieving or someone's going through a hardship, the best thing you can do is just make your presence known. Let them know they're there, that you're there for them. You're thinking about them, you're rooting for them, you're praying for them. You are available if they do want to talk, but try not to, I'd encourage you not to put any pressure on them to respond or to make decisions. I have no energy to make decisions. So when we had all the family in town for the funeral, there were a lot of decisions to make about what to do and then planning the whole thing. And then after the funeral's over, it's like, so where are we going to dinner? And everyone looks at me because I live here. And I'm like, I cannot make another decision. Someone else choose for me. And they did, so it was fine. But it's just, remember that grief takes a lot out of a person's body and psyche. And decision making is so hard. So if you want to support your friend or your loved one through a difficult time, say something sweet, share a nice memory, and if you really want to do something like send a card, send flowers, send food, just do it. Don't ask, is this too much? Don't ask, is this what you want? Because chances are there's nothing that you can give that's going to make their pain go away, but you can at least make it better. And it was so meaningful to me, even though, to be honest, the care package my friend brought me, I gave away like 90% of the things in the care package because I wasn't in the mood to eat them. I don't really want to drink alcohol. And so it was wine and snacks and stuff. And there was a lot of things that I was like, I'm never going to eat this, so I'm just going to give it away. That's fine. I also binged on some cookies she gave me. So that was great. So it's like, even though I didn't necessarily use the things in the care package, I will always remember how sweet that was of her and how thoughtful it was of her to go out of her way and do that. One other really touching thing has been when people have received sweet messages about my mom. So particularly my uncles or my other relatives have received nice messages from people that they've told about my mom's passing, and they'll send these nice note about my mom. And it's so nice when they forward me those messages, or forward my dad and my siblings and me those messages, because then it shows like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. And it shows that they're thinking about us too. And that's so nice, because I think dealing with the loss of a loved one, you just want to remember your loved one and how wonderful they are. And when you realize how many lives have been touched, like when I've realized how many lives have been touched by my mom, it really feels good. There was one man who wrote an article. He literally wrote a column about my mom, and even though he's like, I never met her, but I didn't have to. And he was someone that my mom had worked with, but remotely. They only talked on the phone. In their 20 or 30 years of working together, they'd only talked on the phone. They never met in person, and he wrote the sweetest article about her. I'll link that in the description, actually, because it's really sweet to share. And he sent that to my dad, and I sent it along to my uncles and my aunt and my cousins, because I thought, like, this is their family too. They should read this. And people were so appreciative. Like, thank you for sharing that with me, because you want to know nice things people are saying about your loved one. So if you are the person grieving or going through any sort of hardship, and you're feeling overwhelmed, what I encourage you to do is just be honest with what you need, but also don't put pressure on yourself to know what you need. So for me, it's like, I'll just say I don't have the energy to talk. If someone's like, hey, would it be helpful to talk right now? Do you want to talk? I'll say, I don't have the energy. When I do have the energy, I'll say, yeah, now's a good time. But just, you don't have to explain yourself, really. You don't have to go into detail. I've had people message me about random things like, hey, what about this workshop? And I'll just say, I can't deal with that right now. Thank you for reaching. I'll get back to you in a few weeks. So really just give yourself permission to take time and to tell people what you need, but without you don't have to be so specific. Tell people, I don't have the energy to process that right now. Thank you for your support. Or tell people what you need. So for example, everyone just kept saying, anything you need us to do, we will do it. So I was like, hey, can you go to the grocery store and pick up this vegetable tray before the celebration of life that's between the burial and the afternoon reception? And she was so happy to do that. And in other circumstances, I probably would have thought, nah, I'll just do it myself. Our family will figure it out. But it's like people want to help. So when you do think of something specific that would be very helpful, tell them. I told a friend the other day, I was like, my dad doesn't know what he's doing for dinner tonight. I don't know what I'm doing either. And so then my friend went with me to the grocery store to get some food to figure out what to do for dinner. So when you do know what you want, don't be afraid to share it. And if you don't know what you want, that's okay too. Just tell people, I don't know. I'm overwhelmed. I'm sad. I can't process this right now. And know that the people that really love you and support you will be there no matter what. I think it's also important to note to be patient and be forgiving, because a lot of people don't know what to say, because there's no right thing to say, honestly. And a lot of people I've noticed would always get uncomfortable when I would talk about my mom even being sick. And so now talking about her passing, they don't know how to handle it. And there's like, whoa, they get awkward. So just be patient with people. I've also had people that will constantly check in, how are you? And it's just like, it's too much. So I'm not going to fault them for it or resent them for it. Just remember, everyone is coming from a good place. No one's trying to make your situation worse. And some people are going to get it wrong. So just be patient and trust that they're trying their best, and all you can do is try your best. One more thought worth noting is that how you show up for the people you care about in this time of their life. So if your friend is grieving or going through a big loss, how you show up now is going to affect your relationship, I think. Because I already, there's one friend of mine who saw on social media, I know she saw on social media the news, and she never reached out, and that really hurt me. And I'm like, I don't know if our friendship will ever be normal again, because I did see her at the gym, and I was like, did you see that? And she's like, no, I had no idea. But it just it feels weird, versus there are other people who I haven't talked to in years that have reached out and sent really long messages or nice messages or even just short messages, but they've reached out. And now I naturally have a more favorable impression of them versus the people who haven't been supportive or haven't reached out at all. It does affect the relationship. And so you don't have to do this perfectly, but just know, because no one can do it perfectly, there's no perfect answer, but just know that if you care about someone in your life, try to show up for them, just to let them know that you are there for them if they need you. And I will say too, one of my neighbors was talking about my mom. She said that my mom was the first person at her door when her mother passed. And she had tears in her eyes saying this after my mom passed. That's what she remembered about my mom. She was like, she was the person who was there, first person at my door when my mom passed. And that really stuck with her. And I know all the people who have been here for me, I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life, because this is a very pivotal moment. And the people who weren't there for me, hopefully I won't dwell on that, but it will affect my relationship probably with them for at least some years to come. And to my point, I'm trying to be forgiving and understand that most people are coming from a good place. So it's not like anyone's intentionally ignoring you if that happens. And for me, no one's intentionally being mean about it, but I definitely feel a strong positive impression towards the people who have been there for me, and I will remember that forever. So if you want to improve your relationships, make sure that in these pivotal moments, even if it feels awkward, even if it feels uncomfortable, be there for them. And if you've been through a similar experience, you know that is so true. So thank you so much for listening. I think this was a little scattered, but also I'm going to be patient with myself because I'm not in the best headspace. It's tough. And I know the importance of taking difficult circumstances and turning those into teaching moments. So I really hope you got something out of this. Thank you so much for your love and support. And I encourage you to leave a comment if you've gone through a similar grieving process. Let me know what you have found helpful, or things that you recommend for other people to do, or things that were helpful for yourself. Thank you so much again, and see you in the next video.